I know you've been dying to talk about AVOD, and which is I would guess ad-based video on demand or advertising video on demand. AVOD was basically the redheaded stepchild. Sorry for all you redheads out there, but the stepchild of video on demand, and it was like the place where films go to die. Was with the original concept of AVOD. Is like, oh man, if you movie's not making any money or it's just pretty much done, you put it up on AVOD or YouTube. Like YouTube is AVOD essentially, but it's just not an exclusive AVOD. It's literally open to the whole world as well. So that has changed dramatically. So can you please tell us your experience with AVOD and how it is currently affecting your bottom line and your filmmaker's bottom line?
AVOD now is providing the best ROI for our filmmakers. And I think that is going to just keep expanding. And there's very good underlying reasons for that if you think about it. Old-fashioned television has always been paid for by advertisers. And everybody watched television and everybody sat through the ads or got up and went to the restroom or, or made some popcorn or whatever. It was just a part of life. You watch television, you watch the ads. Well, when the streaming came around and on demand, where you were paying for it basically, there was nothing in it for the advertisers, right? They had no interest in it. But when the first AVOD channels started to come about, and the very first one that got hugely popular was Tubi TV. Mm-hmm. And Tubi TV, we have been on for more than 10 years. And for the first 8, no one even knew what it was. First of all, it wasn't called Tubi. It was called AdRise. And it was interesting how that happened because we, one of our very first channels that we were on or stations was called Cashy. And in the beginning on the internet, it wasn't streaming. It was downloadable DVDs.
Right.
So in other words, right, that's how we started this whole journey because the internet wasn't fast enough to watch over the internet.
Right.
But you could buy, instead of going to the video store, you could download the movie and watch it. Easier than going to the video store, right?
Arguably, the technology was a little bit wonky,
right.
Let's say.
Right. So there were two. Amazon was the first with Unbox.
Right.
And our movie, Shifted, was the first indie film on Unbox. And then there was another one called Cashy. And it was started by this guy by the name of Tom Hicks. Well, Amazon survived, but Cashy did not because they weren't charging enough. They were giving 70% to the filmmakers, and it was so early that it wasn't enough for them to survive. So they wound up, closing that company. Well, then Tom Hicks got involved in a whole new business, and that was the start of AdRise, which is to make advertising-based streaming. And that AdRise became Tubi. And it was only renamed to Tubi, 3 years ago, something like that. And when we first started doing it, people were just as adamant about not doing AVOD as they were putting your whole movie up on YouTube.
Right.
It was like, oh, you're giving away my movie for free. And I still have people that say, oh, my movie's for free on this channel. They just don't get the concept that, yes, it looks like it's free, but people are watching ads and you are getting half the advertising revenue, right? Mm-hmm. They just don't understand that coming from a different place. Now, what's happened is that the advertisers now see that everybody's going to streaming. So their way of getting in on the streaming business, right, is to go with these AVOD channels because it's just they've created a new television. AVOD is the new television. And it's a better television than the old television, only in that you can watch what you want when you want to watch it. You no longer have to be home on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock to see such and such show.
Or record it on your VCR.
Or use TiVo, is it?
Well, it was called TiVo. I'm talking about old school VA, automatic record.
Record. Right. So now you can just. So it's only natural that that the advertisers have glommed onto streaming, and so that's why you see that, especially the companies, the big media companies like Universal, right, that are losing their advertisers from their regular linear TV, right? They have moved. They watch their advertisers leaving them and going to streaming. So that's why part of why Universal has Peacock, which is streaming AVOD, right? So it's a way to transition from the old school broadcasting and cable into modern streaming and modern television. So that's why I see AVOD as, the new frontier for filmmakers to earn revenue.
No, but with Tubi specifically, because there's Tubi and Pluto and there's IMDb TV and Peacock and a couple other ones as well. But when Tubi lots of other ones, excuse me, and growing, as I'm sure there's 5 of them that just opened up while we've been talking. The issue I saw was that originally Tubi was wide open and there weren't a lot of movies up there. So any movies that did get up on the platforms, they would get a bigger chunk of the advertising revenue because there was less competition. Now there's a lot more competition on Tubi. Are you seeing revenue drop per movie?
Nope.
No, they're not.
No. The advertising, it's measured in eCPMs, per 1,000 views of an ad, right? The number of ad impressions, we're getting paid the same amount for the ad impressions that we've always gotten paid.
Mm-hmm. But per title, is it a per
ad?
No, not per ad, but per title. I'm saying is like the pie smaller per film as it is, because before, let's say you had 10 films up on Tubi, each film would probably get a lot more ad plays in a lot more plays because there's less competition. But now that there's so much more content on Tubi, the ad revenue still might be the same, but the per film might be less. Or am I mistaken?
Like any platform, maybe your top 10, 15% of your movies are making 90% of the revenue.
Right. It's the 80-20. It's the 80-20 principle.
Yeah. It's that 80-20 situation, and that's true on just about every platform that we're on. Mm-hmm. But the actual amount of money we're getting paid, per ad, is pretty consistent.
Is that enough? Do you mind asking, or is that number kind of classified as far as a per ad?
Between 9 and 11
cents.
Dollars.
Oh, dollars.
Yeah.
Oh, per 1,000 views.
Yeah.
Or per 1,000 views.
For
impressions. So that's actually pretty good, and that's actually pretty good. And I've had filmmakers who've decided to put their movies up on YouTube, and if they have a monetizable channel and they have a lot of views. Some of those CPMs I've seen, depending on the genre and things, we're talking about $20, $30 CPMs on their 1,000 views of what they're doing.
You can very definitely make money on YouTube movies.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fairly insane.
Okay.
But again, this is what we're trying to do with this episode is to change people's mentality about what the realities of the world that we live in currently as of this recording is. In a year or two, AVOD might be old. I don't know. Maybe there'll be some new thing that you and I don't even know is coming down the line.
But for the immediate future, AVOD is where the business is trending towards and is in. Something that's interesting to note is that different AVOD channels have different demographics. Mm-hmm. So my top 20 list on Tubi is extremely different than my top 10, 20 list on Pluto or my top 20 list on IMDb TV.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very different demographic. You'd think it would be all the same, but it's not.
Yeah, one movie that does well on one platform could tank on another.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think part of why that is that Tubi was first, and it was available to people that couldn't afford cable and couldn't afford a lot of subscription channels, so they were forced to watch with ads.
Right? But
that audience grew
and is growing.
So yes, and so Tubi tends to be that that audience, although it's changing, and other people are starting to change, but that's not true of IMDb TV, because people that have IMDb TV, one, they're getting on there through Amazon Prime, so they're people that had money to spend on Prime.
Right.
So it's a different demographic.
Now, are you seeing that the numbers on these AVOD platforms are starting to go up because we are in an economic downfall right now?
Absolutely.
And it's
because of COVID, people are at home too.
Right, and they've lost their jobs and they don't have the money, and they still want to be entertained, so they'll buy a Roku connection or a box for what does Roku cost? Like $30?
Roku, their premium box I think is like $60 or $70, and or you can get their streaming stick, which is a light version of it for $30.
Right, exactly.
Or Amazon Fire.
Fire Stick.
Popular.
Yeah, because that's like $20 or $30. Right.
If you buy a new TV, it's all built in.
Right. Exactly. So for no money, you essentially could just, if you've bought a new TV, if you're lucky enough to have a new TV, but if you don't, you could buy a $20 to $50 box essentially.
Right.
Have access to all the content you want for free. Just have to deal with ads. And for somebody in a family that is hurting or lost their jobs or the economy's really hit them hard, this is an option. And it's becoming more and more so, not only here, but around the world. Now, that's another thing. How are your sales internationally, and how are you generating revenue internationally? Because before, I know Prime was a very big deal for you internationally, but how are you doing it now?
Well, every month, more and more people are streaming globally, and every month channels are increasing their territorial reach. Like when Tubi for the first couple of years was only US, and then they added Canada, and then they added UK, and now they're adding Latin America. So, and they plan on expanding. Yeah. So I think we're going to see these streaming channels go global. I really do.
Right. And so, but for right now, what are the trends that you're seeing currently in regards to revenue streams coming in for independent films internationally? Like, where are you making money internationally?
UK is probably, English-speaking territory still is the primary.
But is it, no, I understand, but is it like SVOD, is it TVOD, is it AVOD? What is the form?
Oh, it's Prime because that's where we're in the most territories.
Got it. So Prime is still internationally. Prime is still generating revenue for you and your filmmakers.
Yes, and Prime and Prime outside the U.S. and UK is not as dependent on that CER.
Oh, because they want market share in those areas. So
different pay rates. That's right, because they're growing those markets, so they have higher pay rates.